Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I'll be working behind the scenes to produce this conversation. Before we jump in, I just wanted to encourage you to connect with us on social media. Oh, looks like I'm a little laggy, so I'm going to turn off my camera. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Follow us on social media on YouTube. Subscribe to us at Grade Level Reading. On LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, follow us at Campaign for GLR. And on X, follow us at Reading by Third. Please use the hashtag Learning Tuesdays and tag us to tweet anything you learned from today's webinar, and we'll be sure to reshare. We encourage you to share any questions, reflections, and observations on social media. I also wanted to take a moment to, let's see, there we go. Wanted to take a moment to acknowledge our enterprise and programmatic funders, as well as our individual donors. Your support not only allows us to hold these vital conversations, but also helps us create meaningful opportunities to share insights, foster connections, and build the CGLR community. Before we begin, I also want to share a few housekeeping tips. First, we would love for you to introduce yourself, so please use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to share your name, city, or state, and your organization. Be sure when responding to select everyone so that we can all see each other's chat messages and get to know each other. We will be encouraging you to post any questions you might have in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Our panelists will be keeping close eye on the questions that you post throughout the conversation, so we encourage you to post any questions you might have. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording, as well as all slides, bios, and resources will be emailed in a follow-up to all who registered. And lastly, we will be having a brief on-screen poll during the close of the webinar, and we highly encourage you to respond. This helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. And before we jump in, I also wanted to help give a look at some of our upcoming webinars that we have. Later this afternoon at 3 p.m., we have an exciting conversation on book abundance for early learning and development with early literacy and early school success. We have a rockstar panel that is going to be diving into that topic. Next week on the 14th, we'll have a session co-sponsored by Children's and Screens, discussing screens in the first 5 years, what we need to know and do. On October 21st, we will be embarking on our Parents as Curators of Their Children's Education series with the evolution of homeschooling. And on the 28th, Early Relational Health, Building Foundations for Child, Family, and Community Well-Being. More information and registration links for all of those sessions will be posted in the chat box now, and we hope that you will register to join us. And joining you now is Jenny Atkinson, Senior Consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you, Sierra, and I'm so happy to welcome all of you today to our actually, let me just remind people of the upcoming Crucible of Practice in November. It didn't fit on the last slide, so we're just adding it here. Our next Crucible of Practice is November 4th, and it's going to be focused on reading captains, sparking literacy one neighborhood at a time, impact and growth of the Reading Captains program. So we'll hope you join us for that webinar as well. And now we'll turn back to today's webinar, the Moonshot Series Preview, a powerful launchpad for collective impact. The Crucible of Practice webinar series started because communities doing work to support early school success for children wanted to dig deeper, to really understand how to best do this work with others who are doing that same work in other places. The Indian River County, Florida community has taken this idea to the next level with their series of short videos that do exactly that, dig deep into what they've done and how they've achieved academic progress for their community's children. And they're so committed to sharing what they're learning and learning from others in the process. So we're so excited to have them here to do a preview of that series and to talk about some of what they've learned. I'm really excited to have this conversation today where we'll hear from Debbie Arsenault, who's the Director of Arts and Literacy Integration with the Learning Alliance, Barbara Hammond, the co-founder and CEO of the Learning Alliance, Brian McMahon, PhD and Director of Accountability and Research with the school district, the Indian River County, Marie O'Brien, who's the Director of Advocacy and External Relations with the Learning Alliance, and Liz Remington, who's the Chief Academic Officer and co-founder of the Learning Alliance. We're so thrilled to have all these presenters with us, and you can read more about them in the bio doc that I'll post in the chat momentarily. So now I'd like to turn things over to Barbara Hammond, who will kick off our conversation. Welcome, Barbara.
Thanks so much, Jenny. So if you can go on to our first slide, that would be great. But we're really delighted to be here to talk about the Moonshot series. And I'm Barbara Hammond, as Jenny said, CEO and co-founder of the Learning Alliance. Liz will talk a little bit about the Learning Alliance. She's my co-founder, but we both were moms whose children were struggling in school. So this work has been grown out of a passion that we have. And if you look on this slide, you'll see at the bottom left that the Moonshot goal of 90% literacy by third grade was a collective goal set in 2010 at the launch actually of the campaign for grade level reading by our school district and the Learning Alliance to onboard our community. And our community's been holding this goal for over 15 years. And so the Moonshot series really captures some incredible progress we've made as our new superintendent attacked this from a systems perspective. And we've captured that in this video series. So with that, I'd just love to say that this work wouldn't have been possible without the campaign for grade level reading, introducing us to Jeff Martin in the Children's Literacy Project, and asking us to make public and visible our blueprint for action, which has been moving us ahead as the fastest growing school district in the state of Florida. So with that, I will turn it over to Liz Remington, my co-founder, who will give you a little background on the Learning Alliance.
All right, thanks, Barbara, and welcome everybody. I see a lot of familiar names and faces out there. On the next slide, we talk about kind of who we are, and I always say our name and our logo says it all. We are the Learning Alliance. The star represents our children at the center and the people around that star that need to ally together and learn together what it takes to meet our 90% literacy goal. So out of that goal, which has really galvanized the school and the community, has grown this big question, which on the next slide, I think we shared, what does it take to create literate, compassionate, creative citizens who will improve our world? So that question is what drives the work in service of this 90% goal. That's the framing question. And it's a big, lofty, comprehensive question. But I think what it does is do what Ralph Smith from the Campaign for Grade Level Reading always says. It requires that people get out of the bleachers and onto the playing field and have to reimagine and reinvent themselves. What does it mean to solve this puzzle, to answer this question such that we meet our goal?
So if you go to the next slide, a quick overview of the Moonshot series. A year and a half ago, we invited people from across the country into our Moonshot School, which we'll talk about later today. And Jeff Martin from the Children's Literacy Project, who had just finished the movie Sentence, which was about adult illiteracy and the trauma that caused not only to the adults, but to their children. So the generational poverty issue. He came into our community and at our Moonshot School saw our most challenged kids, in classrooms, peaceful classrooms, learning at an incredible rate, embedded with arts literacy. And he said, oh my gosh, there is hope for the misery that he felt as they were filming the problem of adult illiteracy. So with that, they proposed to do a series of master classes. And if you go to the next slide, really trying to reimagine how a community could do its work. We came up with 10 episodes of our Moonshot series, and they all go to different levers within the system. And we are doing a conference February 11th and 12th of this year, and invite everybody to come to that conference to dig deeper into the various tracks. If you're district leadership or superintendent, or if you want to start a Moonshot School, or if you are working on 0 to 5, I mean, we are attacking all different levels and the data. If you want to figure out how to go deep to data, we are attacking all different levels. So today is us taking a few snippets from a couple of these videos and creating a learning conversation about it. But we won't have the time to go as deep as we'd like to for those who really want to accelerate their work and help us accelerate ours. So the conference will be a place where we can do that together. So I would say that if we go to the next slide, while we could talk about all these different things, what we're really going to, oops, don't start it yet, sorry, I went too fast. Just need to set it up. We have a 2-minute overview of the work because we can't show you all the videos, but you can also share, we'll send an email to people afterwards. You can share this 2-minute overview with anybody that you want to recruit to come to the summit and learn deeper. So with that, now we can show the 2-minute overview.
Third graders in our country aren't reading on grade level.
Only 35% of our third graders are proficient at reading. We're leaving a whole lot of kids behind.
We have to change.
We want to have 90% literacy by third grade.
It's a big, ambitious goal. They probably think we're nuts.
We are.
It's unified everyone.
A major movement in our community.
A public-private partnership who said, let's work together to solve a problem.
If we all have this collective goal, what are we waiting for? Like, let's go now.
The change has been astronomical.
Somebody's holding us to what you could be.
Let's prove to the world that the 90%, it can be a reality in a Title I school.
This whole idea of teaching being isolated is
Sierra,
over.
if you're sharing,
Extra
we
staff
aren't seeing
in
or
the
hearing
classroom,
it.
coaches, intervention.
We intervene right away.
I just think it's time to try something different.
I'm going to invest in K1 and 2, making sure they never get behind.
Community members, business leaders, philanthropists, nonprofits.
It's all hands on deck. If it wasn't for people in the community getting involved, nothing would have happened.
If we weren't getting better, we wouldn't be so inspired.
Once you have a taste of success, you don't want to go back.
Somebody had to inspire us. I could be better.
It's all about what is best for students.
We can do hard things. We can do hard things.
Something unique is happening here, but it doesn't have to be unique. Everyone can do this work.
Sierra, are you working on the video? Should we move on to something else for a minute?
I'm hearing and seeing the video okay.
I was going to say, were others able to see that okay?
Just fine.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So sorry, Jenny, maybe might have been from you.
So these videos will be made accessible too on the Children's Literacy Project website. Again, we'll send an email at the end where people can access them. I think importantly, when we first started this work, we're like, how do we write the blueprint? Do we write a white paper? And, you know, the magic that happened was that this filmmaker came into our neck of the woods and said, I think this is an easier, better way to communicate and accelerate learning, not just for us, but for others. So we'd love your feedback over time on how these can be used powerfully with all of our communities. We are going to use a common format. So if you go to the next slide, we're just going to give you about 30 seconds after each of the movie segments. And I think there will be 1, 2, 3, 4 to give insights and questions, just allow you to gather your time. And Sarah Torian will be monitoring those and coming back and answering outstanding ones at the end of this webinar and sharing them with us after for those that we aren't able to answer in the webinar. So that's your 30 seconds. You can put that in your Q&A, I think is where they'd appreciate having it with all the dots on your screen, the Q&A is in there as opposed to the chat if possible. So if you go to the next slide, as we've begun to preview these episodes, what we find is these episodes really are the now. What is our way of work? And people automatically go, well, what changed? How did you become so accountable? How did you become so centered on a culture change that is really focused on being best by kids? So we've got with us today, Brian McMahon. He'll talk with me about the first video. He can talk about, the before and what was the change to now. And obviously we're not at the end of our journey. You'll see our statistics in a minute, but we've had some schools already hit 90%. The district overall has risen dramatically and much faster than the state to 71%, but our goal is still 90% for all kids. So we are learning through these conversations about what's next for us, and Brian and the folks at the Moonshot School can talk about what's next for them as we continue this learning journey. So keep that in your mind as you think about your insights and questions. So if we go to the next slide, I think I just want to introduce Brian McMahon. On the screen, the gentleman without any hair who's follically challenged, as my co-founder Liz Remington finally told me 15 years ago, is our superintendent of schools, Dr. David Moore. He was the top superintendent in the state of Florida last year, one of the top 4 finalists across the country. So he really does have a way of work. We had been in this work for 5 different superintendents, and he has something special to share from a systems perspective. And he has a great team. Brian McMahon, he didn't bring him in. Brian has been with us since the day one. It really is how he organized the resources to be powerful in front of this community. So Brian and I will have a chat. Brian probably should be a talk show host because he's very funny, but he's really a deep data guy, and he'll give a lot of insights after this next video, which if you can turn now, the first video is the superintendent and leadership. It's the first 5 minutes of it. We're not showing any of the videos incomplete, but the first 5 minutes will give us a step in and a conversation we can begin.
Indian River County, Florida believes literacy is the bridge to all learning and can disrupt the generational poverty that burdens their community. Since the Learning Alliance and the school district launched their Moonshot goal, their community's schools have seen an amazing transformation. In the last 5 years, their district grade has increased 33 state rankings, and now they are second in the state in 3rd grade reading. Their performance has shown the most improvement in the state of Florida over the last 4 years and have been a grade A school district the last 3 years with a 96% high school graduation rate. Since 2015, their high poverty elementary schools have improved dramatically with only 2 B rankings. And while the state's 3rd grade reading scores have only risen 4 percentage points over the last 10 years, their scores have risen 17 points in that same time. And since 2012, the Moonshot Moment has been recognized by the Campaign for Grade Level Reading more than any other community. This is still a story in progress, and they're not to their goal yet, but something special is happening here. And a big part of their community's success is when they found the right district leader that embraced their movement.
From 2009 to 2019, we were piloting excellent programs, but we couldn't scale the solution to all children. We realized you need state policy that's aligned and a superintendent who can lead the way.
Dr. Moore became the superintendent of Indian River County in 2019 and embraced the Learning Alliance's work in early literacy. His success is starting to gain attention.
Covering the Treasure Coast, 2 big honors. Dr. David Moore has been named Florida's Superintendent of the Year. Officials say Indian River County is the most improved school district among 67 school districts in the state.
I came in 2019 with one unwavering expectation. We will be best like kids. We are going to have to put the needs of children in front of the desires of adults.
With a degree in drama and teaching, Dr. Moore began his career in education in alternative schools in Miami-Dade County, working as a teacher, counselor, and principal, serving kids with learning disabilities.
I have been chasing impact for the last 25 years. What I learned is when adults have an unwavering belief on the impact they can have on the life of a child, students can, despite their challenges, find success.
His impact with the hardest to teach started to gain attention from the Miami-Dade district.
One day, the new superintendent, Mr. Cavallo, comes to me and says, Dr. Moore, I hear you're too good to be in alternative education. So my immediate response was, I think principals and teachers in alternative education need to be the absolute best, because this is the last chance to get it right. And his immediate response was, what if we can create a system where we never needed alternative schools? And that was powerful to me.
Soon, Dr. Moore became an assistant superintendent at Miami-Dade Schools and was asked to lead the transformation office.
I was responsible for 102 schools. 65 of those schools were either a D or an F. Within 2 years, we eliminated all the 16 F schools. We were down to 1 D. It was that success that was driving people to Miami to look at what the transformation office was doing. And that's when I ran into some folks from Indian River County. And in that conversation, it was very clear to me there was something different in Indian River County. And what that was a community was willing to bend over backwards, to partner with the school system, to do whatever needed to be done, truly to transform what public education looks like.
When Dr. Moore saw us, there was a recognition of like-minded souls, accountability, high expectations, a systems approach where coaching was going to drive accelerated learning on the part of teachers, and where intervention after school programs early, kindergarten through 2nd grade, were going to close the gaps of our children before they got to 3rd grade.
Shortly after their meeting, Dr. Moore applied for the role of superintendent of Indian River County.
You may evaluate me, but I work for the students. I think you're looking for bold and courageous leadership. Someone who's not afraid to come in and make difficult decisions in the best interest of children. Someone who isn't afraid to be fired.
When I heard him saying this in front of the school board members, I went like, wow, I like that.
Dr. Moore won the job, bringing his rare pedigree and bold style to Indian River County. We want to explore his unique approaches to the role that we believe make him an effective leader, in hopes of encouraging and inspiring what's possible from our superintendents.
Is that it? Okay, so more really exciting stuff to come in that video. If we had, there's a 17-minute long video. It's the longest video of the episodes. Most of them are 10 minutes. But I do think that you guys have time right now to write some of your insights and questions down. We're going to give you a full minute to do so in the Q&A if possible, because then we can share them and save them. So if you take some time now, write down, 2 or 3 of your key insights and questions, we'd appreciate it. Okay, that was quick. That was a quick minute. So if we can bring in Brian McMahon, we got a question about recruiting him. And as he said in the video, we went to Miami on a learning visit because we're a learning organization, and we went with the school district. All of our work is about going places looking for best practices. And he was sort of astonished because most people in Florida had never visited him. And so he had to go someplace where the community held really high expectations because he wanted to do things differently. And if the community didn't have his back, then the school board might fire him, right? So he was ready to go. I think Alberto Carvalho in Miami had created a set of superintendents that had the skill set and could go to various places. And I think, that'll be an interesting, Brian, question for you is how do we develop more Dr. Moores? Because one community shouldn't be the only one to benefit, from a great superintendent. One of the things we're going to do at the summit is really talk about how do we create more, because every citizen in the United States of America deserves a Dr. Moore with the system skill set that he has. We shouldn't be without that. So anyway, Brian, please introduce yourself. I'd love you to talk about this transformation, around instructional excellence to build the team and systems. You're the data guy. We'll get to data in a moment, but culturally, people change their roles. Can you talk about what it was like and what's it like now and what was it like before and how did it happen?
Yeah, I appreciate, first off, thank you for everyone for participating and letting me share a few insights. I did pause when you said we need more Dr. Moores. I think one might be enough. All jokes aside, the thing that has captivated me about Dr. Moore's approach is the work itself is not, I don't want to say rocket science. Systematizing our efforts is not difficult. Now, he brings a wealth of talent, brilliant man, can really kind of read and understand the motivations of people and put people in the right place and articulate what a system is. But the work itself is replicable. And that's why I appreciate these videos. I appreciate the ability to share because what we are doing, any district can do. It is definitely about getting outside of their maybe their way of work. And so this particular slide is perhaps one of the first major changes is that we stopped doing what adults wanted to do. Tier 2 groups. We would have someone leading a group probably for the last 423 years. They loved it. It was a program. And every year they would still do it, but they would find the kids for that program rather than looking at the kids they had and identifying the program that would best fit their needs. And so by switching the focus to being best by kids, he empowered us to make decisions that are truly best by kids. And it disrupted a lot of people's work. We moved some cheeses around, if you're familiar with that work. And by switching the focus to students, it gravitated towards this desire and need for data to really truly inform our problem solving. And so we, I know I've got some slides later on about the data itself, but in terms of our leadership, not only did we do best by kids, but we allowed data to feed us what we needed to know to make the choices that we needed to make.
Yeah, so Brian, one of the things that we saw is people had always talked about, data or, being best by kids or, the various systems. Somebody asked, what are the systems, right? And the systems started with strategic planning. He was very clear that the strategic plan had to align resources around what was best by kids and that you would have KPIs, data, basically that was real in the front line, which would align with that and held everybody from the district staff to the principals, to the coaches, to the teachers accountable to the data that mattered most, right? So from the outside, as we looked in, people had adopted other superintendents the vision for 10 years, but they couldn't seem to get the front line coordinated with with that vision. And I know with Dr. Moore, it started with the strategic plan and then it went down to other systems. But will you talk about a little bit, go to the next slide, when you're aligning people with instructional excellence, that changed how the behaviors of district staff, principals, literacy coaches, teachers, and interventionists. Can you talk a little bit about, what's mentioned in the video and how behaviors changed at each one of those levels? Sure. Then we'll go into the data.
Yeah, absolutely. So previously our strategic plan was developed by consultants that we hired that brought in. And of course they did their stakeholder groups and they suggested this and they worked with us, but largely that strategic plan was someone else's plan. And it didn't drive our work the way that a strategic plan ought to. And so one of the very first things that Dr. Moore did is he developed a strategic plan that was very action oriented. And he told the school board, this is my evaluation. If I don't accomplish these, then fire me. And he was full on, like we all were just sitting there with our eyes wide, like, are you sure you want to say that? And he did. And you know what? He aligned the work to accomplish that strategic plan. When your accountability, when your job is dependent on certain outputs, you're going to accomplish what you set out to measure. And so it drastically it was such a, I don't know how to word it. It was such a oh my gosh, like it caused all of us at the district office to really turn around and evaluate what we were doing. And so we did a drastic where each school really was on their own and they had some district support. We took back control to establish a way of work. And so everything was predefined. How we rolled out our principal trainings, how we rolled out our AP trainings, and in our coaches, we would sporadically, or we would spread them out across the month. So principals might be the first week, APs the second. We changed that to where everyone gets that monthly check-in on the same week. And so what the principals learned on Tuesday, the APs learned on Wednesday, but for an AP flavor. And then on Thursday, the coaches got the same message, but more at their level, at the coach level. And it refined and systematized our approaches. So we had a common message, a common expectation, and a common way of work. And then that just bled down into the teachers and the interventionists. We were all working at the same goal. So it was very strategic. He set an ambitious goal. Probably one of the major differences that allowed us to accept this quote unquote outsider is that he came with success. It wasn't that he was coming at us saying, we're going to have all A's and B's, and never had the background that actually accomplished it. His success spoke for itself from Miami in a major system like that. And so it drastically changed the district to refine our work and to systematize our efforts.
So what I saw and what's cool in the videos is the district people used to see them at their desk doing paperwork, and the videos show how the district is now in schools, right?
Yes.
The videos show how, you know, principals used to be building managers and they're now instructional leaders. Again, something we've heard about forever, but the videos really talk to, oh, I thought it was impossible when he told me we were going to do that, right? So the disbelief turning to, you guys gave enough guidance and a way of work and them doing it, and it led to impact, which really then led them to sustaining it. So the principals are now walk-in schools, walk-in classrooms all the time. So are the literacy coaches. The teachers' doors are open. When we first started 15 years ago, it was hard to get a coach. We would put coaches in the system. They weren't allowed in the classroom, right? Teachers, you know, that wasn't the way of work. You walk in classrooms now and the kids expect visitors to be in there, so they keep doing their work. So
that's a great point,
yeah.
Barbara. And I just to hit on that, I want to make sure that the participants understand the principal's role drastically changed. And you mentioned it. It went from an instructor or a building manager to an instructional leader. That requires a ton of work and support from the district office. We try to take the operational things out of their hands and allow them to focus on instruction. And that requires then some district people to get a little more uncomfortable and to do some work that they may not have done in the past. Our whole job is to allow principals to be free to do what they do best, and that is to lead instructionally. And that was a major systemic change in how we approach our work.
So I do think the cultural belief from the community saying we know all kids can get to 90%. We went and visited pockets in the country that were achieving that with our most difficult kids. And our belief that if we brought funding and support to you guys, you could figure out how to do that in the public school system. And I'm guessing that a lot of what happened in his first year or so was creating that belief within you guys that in fact we could do better if we changed our behaviors.
Absolutely. And that belief was a huge thing. I think everyone in education, if you ask them, do you believe every kid can learn? Everyone's going to say yes. That's the politically correct thing to say. But when it comes down to their actual beliefs, do you really believe that? Or are you just saying that? And having us pause to think through and reflect on that really did cause us to reflect on our work, because there were many of us who maybe didn't fully come to grips with that. So yeah, absolutely. Him coming from the area he did, knowing that he did it, it really did help us to pause and to rethink that work. There's a question in the chat about the unions, and you know, we do have a strong union here, and I think ultimately it is keeping the message the right message. What is best by kids? And when you are best by kids, adults are going to be uncomfortable. And definitely it was a lot of working with them. Sometimes, you know, working not apart from them, but we're going to do what's best. We are the instructional leader, so we're going to convince them the reason why. This is not some arbitrary thing that we thought up. All of our teachers are on a collaborative planning schedule, so all of our grade levels have planning at the same time. In our secondary schools, all of our civics teachers, for example, plan at the same time. Algebra plans at the same time. So those subject areas are planning together and is very prescribed. And there's a bit of give and take there, but that took a couple years of convincing. That first year you mentioned, it was definitely a culture shift. That is also a lot of reduction of noises. There's a lot of, and I'll kind of speak to this a little bit more with the data. There's a lot of pieces of data that everyone was using, and it was a lot of noise that confused the conversation. And so it was rather a large part of our early work was simplifying that approach to our data to help them understand exactly what they need, when they need it, and what to do with that data.
So let's turn to data now, because I think it is, crucial. You have to decide what's meaningful to measure. And what we saw was incredible accountability around data. And before, data was invisible. People could hide it. People talk to different pieces. Now there's, people have to speak to that. And I think if we go to the next slide, there's a quick video on the data that might set you up to talk more deeply about it.
We are always going to be about continuous improvement. A school improvement cycle in the state of Florida is a year-long process. We do that entire process 4 times within 1 school year. We are the only district in the state of Florida that does not use the state's continuous improvement model. We use our own.
An innovative staple of their system is what they call Datacom.
All right, DJ Cam, kill the music. Datacom is simply a point of accountability for everyone in the organization. At the beginning of the school year, we all collectively as an organization agreed we are going to be willing to draw ourselves, our attention, our actions, our motivation to the things that are not working absolutely well. All right, let's go. We only got an hour. Who's first?
We have all of the principals and we have all of our senior leadership in a single room, and we go one by one with the schools.
Accountability for walkthroughs and giving feedback to teachers.
And their data is on display. And it's a way to ensure that the plans that they have for their school for that next phase of instruction is exactly what needs to happen.
I don't know what that looks like, but I just think it's time to try something different.
We don't just do one plan for the year, at the end of the year, assess it and determine whether we were successful or not. Because under that theory of action, students have just wasted a whole year with a plan that may not be working.
And it's not this shame like, you're failing at your job. No, our data is our reality. The key is, where are you going tomorrow?
I know it's a pain point now, but talk to me about science a little bit.
We're praying in science. We do have a new 5th grade.
Can't say that's not a good strategy. We're going to need a little bit more here.
It's also a chance for principals to provide feedback to district leadership.
It is very challenging right now for us to have a long-term sub.
That if they need something done to be better at what they're doing, that's their chance. And because all the senior leadership is there, it's very easy for the superintendent to give principals exactly what they need when they need it.
What do you need from us, Ramon?
I want to request, if possible, can she be full-time?
A lot of times we would have high expectations but no support. So now we're getting the support we need. It's not like, well, you've got to do it because I tell you to do it. You've got to do it, but I'm going to help you do it.
All right, anything else?
Okay, so I think Datacom's coming up next week, Brian, because we've got somebody coming in and looking at it. But we weren't allowed to look at that for the first year or something because the principals were, stunned, I think, that they had to be held to accountability, and they sat at the end of the table. But now we can bring people in. The principals have been trained. I mean, it's really sort of a way of work. So can you talk a little bit more? You're at the center of data, about what you think is important for this audience.
What a journey that Datacom has been. And I think that really truly encapsulates the transformation that we have gone through as a district. That first Datacom, principals were told you are not allowed to bring your own data. We had a single dashboard. They had to speak to that dashboard, and they had to convince us that their plans for the next phase is exactly what needed to be done. And so two things happened. And this like kind of speaks to it in a bit. You know, I've got 4 teenagers at home, and they eat food like it's going out of style. We're at Publix 3-4 times a week. They know me. I know all the cashiers. They know all the kids. But this really does articulate somewhat how we approach data. You go from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. Psychologists will tell you that that's confirmation bias. We're bright people, we're experienced, we are educators, we know how to do education. And so we look for data that supports what we think is going on. And sometimes that means going from the fridge to the pantry and eventually finding some data that might support us. And so by telling principals that they could only use the one data set, it reduced all of that noise. And the second part to it, and this is what took a couple years for principals really to come to grips with, this is not an evaluation conference. It's not a backwards looking, why didn't you do X? Why didn't you do Y? It was forward thinking. It was them telling us, I recognize where I'm at. It's clear. It's up there on that dashboard. What I want you to know is that the next datacom, we're not going to be there. And so, as Barbara mentioned, we have our first datacom for this year next week. We have been implementing our first phase of work for the last 8 weeks. And what this will be is, we all know because we talk at the district level, we talk at impact reviews, which is a district team going to schools. We're all in schools. We know what's going on. And what we want to find out next week is the principal, what they have planned for the next 8 to 10 weeks. Is it truly addressing what we see are those big issues? Do they have a firm grasp on where their kids are now and where they need to be, right? So can you go to the next slide? That first datacom was rough because a lot of our approaches to data have always been judgmental. It's, well, look at that school. They're way behind. And we had to shift that focus to, even if we knew a principal may not have what it takes to make it that next year, that was the principal at that school at that moment. And so the philosophy is, we're going to support the heck out of them, because ultimately kids are there, and that's who we are serving. And so I came across this little thing on the left, the graphic, years ago. And at first I was just so upset by it, because I knew the value of data. And for a major organization to push this out and discount data, it upset me a little bit. But as I reflected on it, to me, this is more of an indictment on leadership than it is the teachers. If I give a teacher a piece of data they already knew, I'm not helping them. I'm wasting everyone's time. And so teachers have a great grasp on where kids are in a general sense. And if that general sense is all we provide them, then yeah, we're going to get graphics like this where they're frustrated with it. So we have a philosophy in our department. So in the next slide. And it really drives our work. We are absolutely action focused. I'm not about, I love solving problems. I love puzzles. I love logic things. Those things don't go anywhere. No one's life is solved by how fast I can solve a Sudoku puzzle or anything like that. And so when it comes to data, we really had to refine our approach, that we're not just satisfying that curiosity or just pushing stuff out there because we've always done it. To us, if that data doesn't lead to a change in adult action or a confirmation that our adult actions are actually working, all we're doing is satisfying that curiosity. And if we're satisfying curiosity, it's taking time away from doing things that will actually change kids' lives. And so for us, we really do embrace this statement, that we're going to present data that leads to adult actions.
We're getting some questions about what is your data dashboard and how did you choose what people should be problem solving around?
A lot of wrong things. What I mean by that is I probably have eliminated more dashboards than I've created. It's definitely because we're action oriented. I'm not the one in charge. I might think this data looks beautiful. I might have a line graph that just, articulates this great concept. You push it out to schools, they're not getting it. And you know what? It doesn't work. And it doesn't matter what went into that dashboard. It doesn't matter the volume of work. It doesn't matter how beautiful it looked. If it didn't help them at the schools, then it's totally wrong. And so it was a change in my philosophy that I no longer was the smartest person in the world. I had to go out to them and find out what problem are you trying to solve? And how could I use my data expertise to present data in a way that you could digest it and understand it? And so a lot of dashboards fell flat on its face, and over time, it helped us. We also found that what we measure is what schools look at. And so we needed to reduce some of the data that just, I guess maybe at some level, the principal ought to know that or be able to find that. But when it comes to moving a kid's life, moving adults to transform a kid's life, we needed to put that data first and foremost.
Okay. So Brian, do you have anything that you can show a dashboard?
Yep,
Somebody
I
asked
sure do.
like, what's your infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use Power BI. We're a Microsoft district. Tableau is another type. Power BI is a data visualization software. Can you go to the next slide? I'm going to actually come back to this one. So go to the next one, I believe. There it is. So the bottom left gives you an example of what our district, what we call goal tracker is. Most districts present data as the data occurs. And any context to that data is more of a historical perspective of that particular data set. And what I mean by that is in the state of Florida, we administer our state assessment 3 times a year. The first 2 don't count. It's only the third one that we're held accountable to. We also have a diagnostic tool, even though it's not a diagnostic, you might know it as iReady. It's a similar type product as a general outcome, but it also has an instructional pathway that comes with it. We do that 3 times a year. And so what I mean is that most districts might look at that iReady test or that first state assessment, and the only context they examine that data with is where they were last year at that exact same test. It may be a 3-year or 5-year running average. And that's helpful in the first one. But once you start to go through the school year and you have additional data points, you no longer want to look at where you were historically. That's one piece of it, but you want to know how is this data impacting what you've already shown during the course of the year. And so what this goal tracker does is it attempts to capture the full understanding of all the inputs a student has. And so at the heart of this is a machine learning model that takes into account a ton of academic prior year scores, current year scores, attendance, discipline, student demographics, and it pushes this through a statistical engine to predict a score. And we bounce that against school grades. And so this dashboard is what principals look at and they can see every day. And the reason why I included this is Dr. Moore actually shared this with FADS before district grades were released last summer. And he said, here's our district grade. He was only off by 3 points. That's how accurate this dashboard is that he felt comfortable sharing with 66 superintendents and entire DOE, this is what my grade's going to be, 3 weeks before the grades came out. And yet we were very accurate with it. But this kind of gives you an idea. This is just a cursory look. This is what he would look at as a district grade. We then have a ton of visualizations for looking at it by teacher, by grade level, all understanding and digesting that general outcome of where our kids are.
So Brian, we have like 30 seconds to wrap up before we go to the next. I mean, I do want to invite people again to the summit to learn in more detail. There is going to be a track for data teams to come in and learn deeply all the mistakes we made and how to accelerate learning around data. But in the last 30 seconds, do you have something that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you go backwards a slide? Nope, just one. Here you go. I recognize as powerful as our data ecosystem is, and as the tools that we have tons and tons and tons of districts who come and they ask, how'd you create this? Can you give me the programming? Can you tell me this? And I understand that it's hugely important, but I will tell you, if you took our dashboards and you put it into another district that doesn't have the systems to use it, it'd fall flat on its face. And so I would probably close by saying I'm not the most important person in this district. I'm half of it, but the other half is the systems to use the data. There needs to be habits in our district and school leaders, and those habits need to be systematized, and there needs to be a cadence of accountability and a rhythm to our work. That's how we've made the changes that we've made. We cannot simply have data to look at and, wow, that's pretty. That's a lot of green, not a lot of red. And then we go over here to problem solve. The system for problem solving and the system for data needs to be the same system.
Thanks, Brian. We'll move on, but I would say that everybody is orienting their time around instructional leadership, and the data that we have around what great instruction looks like, what are the 6 high leverage strategies that it's being collected on both the student side and the teaching side, and shared and learned from by our principals, by our coaches, and by our district staff is really a huge change and what is required. So again, we can't give everything here at one webinar, but we invite people in because we learn from you and you learn from us. So if we focus now, we're going to go slide 23. Go to slide 23, please. We're going to focus on one of the other stories, which is about our, are you having me sell this? No. Yeah, VRB, the Moonshot School. I'm going to turn it over to my co-founder, Liz Remington, and to Debbie Arsenault, who is one of the coaches embedded at the school, to talk about Dr. Moore approached us 3 years ago, because we always say, what next do you need to get to our 90% goal? And he said, I think we need to take one of our most needy schools, challenging kids, and make that goal 90%, because if we can get those kids to 90%, then all the disbelief goes away, right? So what does it take to do that? So I'm going to turn it over to Liz Remington and Debbie to talk about the Moonshot School.
Great, thanks, Barbara. Yeah, so the idea is, and I think you see a common thread here, kind of how do you create this accountable learning culture? And what are the systems and structures that are put in place to ensure that learning happens? The Vero Beach Elementary School is a Moonshot School, and the idea behind that is that, transforming a district is hard work, but what if you could have one school that would be the school that you go deeper in, take a deeper dive in, and you showcase and share the learning from that space. And then that would be a way, if you think about like a hub and a spoke on a wheel, it would be, you can bring the learning from other places, even in the district, into that school, try it, and then you get the learning back out. A lot of times as an educator, people would ask me to do things, and I have to see it. I have to experience it to have those ahas. Well, that's what they're asking from me. So there's a lot at play in the Moonshot School. We're still on a learning journey, but we're going to play a little bit of a clip from the Moonshot School, and I'll unpack at a high level what's going on, and then Debbie will do a deep dive into her work.
In Indian River County, 9 of their 13 elementary schools are high poverty, with around 70% of their kids on free and reduced lunch.
The poverty in this community is astounding.
Our kids, they need a little bit more support, or they need a little bit more scaffolding because they don't have maybe a home support, or they didn't have pre-K at all. They may be walking into school in kindergarten the first time in a structured setting ever.
In order to reach their Moonshot goal of 90% literacy by 3rd grade, the district has to rethink how they run and sufficiently resource their struggling schools. And that is why they started the Moonshot School, Indian River County's own lab school, where they test and refine teaching methods with increased resources and expert support for some of the hardest to reach and hardest to teach.
My kids, at least half of them, have endured a lot of trauma.
They've seen things that they should not have seen. I have students that have come from broken homes, one-parent homes, or maybe no parents at all. I have students that are homeless. So many things. The list goes on and on.
They chose Vero Beach Elementary as their demonstration school, a school with a history of low performance which serves many students living in poverty. Just 3 years ago, this school was 20 points below the state average in third grade reading. But today, they're 14 points above.
If you can do it here, you can in fact do it anywhere. Let's use this school as a learning lab so all other schools can come in and observe these high yield strategies being done at a master or expert level. It's very easy for a school to say, yeah, show me where that can be done. Or that sounds great in theory, but be able to say, well, hop in the car and let's drive over to Vero Beach Elementary School and let's see that instructional practice in place.
Changing a whole system at once is a massive lift, so they put extra focus on this one school to serve as a hub of excellence.
Our hypothesis is if we pour our resources and we pour our support into our earliest learners, we can get all of these early readers on grade level by the time they exit second grade. The outcomes that we're going to see in third, fourth, and fifth grade are going to be tremendous.
Teachers opt into work here, signing on to a higher standard and embrace the Moonshot promise to push what's possible. In real time, they test new strategies, refine what works, and radiate those successes back out to the rest of the district.
Every time I give a tour to anybody, they are enamored at the wonderful things that are happening here.
The Learning Alliance has poured significant resources into this bold initiative at Vero Beach Elementary. One key initiative is their heavy investment in coaching.
The Learning Alliance is providing coaches at every K1, 2, and 3, and you have a coordinator who oversees that support.
Outside class time, the coaches help teachers hone their craft and serve as thought partners, helping run their weekly collaborative planning session. In class, they actively teach alongside them, providing additional in-classroom support. In addition, interventionists play a crucial role in offering targeted support to students who need extra help. On staff is an arts integration specialist that works with teachers to help them use art to increase engagement and comprehension in their lessons. Another initiative is that the Learning Alliance incentivizes professional development by offering extra pay to teachers who earn micro-credentials and attend seminars, including their Summer Institute.
Anytime that we reach our goals or we check off something from our expectation list, we are able to be paid for it. And money does motivate. And on top of that, I also get paid for being in a demonstration classroom.
Teachers can also apply to become demonstration classrooms with the expectation they open their doors and model excellence for others in the district. In these demonstration classrooms, educators are invited to come observe expert-level teaching in real time, gaining first-hand insights into their practices and strategies.
How many lines are you going to draw? 3. All right, let's do it. To be a demonstration classroom, it's very rewarding. I've had teachers in my classroom from other schools that came in to watch me because they needed help in classroom management.
If I'm looking specifically for engagement and this teacher needs support at another school, I can bring local people in just to see what does teaching look like in a Title I school.
Graciously, they've opened their Learning Lab school to many people outside the district as well.
All right, if that's the end of that, you'll have to watch the rest later. I think the next slide has an opportunity for you to jot down some of your insights and questions as you reflect on what you just saw. So let's take a minute to do that, and then Debbie and I will unpack a little bit more some of the things that are at play at the moment. All right. I think one of the questions that I saw come up was about pre-K and 0 to 5. We have a whole module that unpacks all the work that's going on with the community partners around 0 to 5. Pre-K is a very important year. I taught pre-K. I understand that deeply, and I also taught kindergarten. And our superintendent has now just put the pre-K under the umbrella of each school, so the principals own the pre-K, and we are so it is being now more included into all of the work and the trainings. And we are working on, the language foundation, the oral language, and getting really proactive around that in those early years, inclusive of pre-K. So on the next slide, there is, okay, what do we do? We're creating this Moonshot School, and it's very unique because it really is this public-private partnership. It is this lab school that is a collaboration between the Learning Alliance and the district, and it's all in service of this Moonshot goal. On the next slide, there are a couple of key things that we do at the school, innovations there that are occurring that aren't in other schools. You saw in the video clip the Moonshot Promise. I think when we started this, it was, and even the work of Dr. Moore, it's like, how do you create this culture? What is it that you put in place to ensure that this collaborative learning culture and the expectations for the teachers and for the parents, and it is boldly on the walls right as you walk in. This is our promise, and we all collectively agree that to the terms of that promise in service of our kids. Okay, so I could talk to you about this week-long Summer Educator Institute that we do it's exclusive to the educators at the Moonshot School in partnership with the Learning Alliance, and we unpack the science of reading, the science of learning, the science of behavior. It's really based on what are we seeing the needs are and where do we need, what's the next step. Extended collaborative planning, every school has a collaborative planning. But every grade level gets 1 week long extended collaborative planning. And I cannot tell you how critical that is to having the educators really go deep into unpacking their lessons, figuring out how to work together, figuring out how to augment and refine what they're doing over time to become the experts that they are. We saw in the video demonstration classrooms, really that opportunity to level up your games, showcase and share your learning as an adult, and be compensated for it. There's micro-credentialing and badging that the educators can sign up to be a part of. And we definitely have the philosophy that learning should be public, visible, and shared for everyone, students and adults. So it is visible, it is shared after school and summer. And extended learning during the day. So there was a nod to the interventionist. We also have after-school Moonshot Academies and summer Moonshot Academies, so we can close the gaps for the kids that need it. And finally, arts literacy integration that engages all students. I trained under the late Sally Smith at the lab school in DC, and she's always said you have to live it to learn it. So Debbie and I have been working together for years. I always say teaching is a science taught by the artist. I bring the boring science to it. She is the brilliant arts integration specialist that really ensures that we bring the learning to life. So on the next slide, I just shared all of the things we're doing. It takes a team, and these are some names and some of the areas in which they work. We call it our acceleration team, but we have a literacy specialist at every grade level in the early years, and we have Leslie Connolly, who coordinates and oversees all that. We have a family success coach, we have reading interventionist, and we have Debbie's position. So this has been a lift, but it requires human capital, and I don't think we should underestimate the need for that and how valuable that is. Next slide. So what is our data telling us? 78% of the teachers have their science of reading micro-credentials. The school received an A for the first time since 2012. 71% of the third grade students are reading at grade level. 83% of the first grade students are reading on grade level.
Which includes 2 94% classrooms.
Yep, I was going to say that. Okay, good. So next slide. So, what is it that, Debbie, that you do? What is your role, and how does it marry with all this other stuff that we've been talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm watching the chat and sort of thinking about how this plugs in and just what a joy and a treat and a privilege it is. You know, we talk about what systems we have in place, what have we put in place, and what does it take? And you mentioned the human capital, right? And that's a big part of all of those human resources. Those systems are when and where and how do we collaborate? Because none of us work in isolation. We're always working as a team to figure out and bring our different perspectives and our voices to the conversation, to look at the kids we have in front of us and say, what does this child need, right? So where Brian's at the level of everything rolls up to the giant tapestry of information that we have, the team on the school here is really getting up into what does it take to move this classroom or this group or this individual student. And so bringing a background in and obviously a passion for arts and creativity into this context, the more I learn about how we learn to read, which has been the gift of my work with the Learning Alliance for the last decade, the more I see how the arts can support that, and how being good in the art form and increasing expertise in the discipline can also serve increasing expertise in the content area, right? So I'm gonna show, it's really easy for me to talk about, but it's actually way more impactful to take a quick look at a little bit of a video clip where we spotlighted this work in our series. So we'll go to that next.
Indian River County's ambitious Moonshot goal to get 90% of their kids reading on grade level has pushed them to explore new ways to close the gaps for their students. One thing they discovered is the power of art as a super tool to help kids improve their literacy and ingest what they're learning, especially for their students far behind in their high poverty schools.
You have to have arts to help all kids. It's a nice to have with some of your kids that maybe already have cultural experiences, maybe really supportive family at home. It's a must have for kids that are coming into the school system that have some language and learning challenges or don't have access yet to those experiences. We as a public school system and as a community have to ensure that those experiences are in place to close those knowledge gaps.
Kids from poverty are frequently less exposed to a wide range of vocabulary. Readers who are struggling might need dozens, potentially hundreds of repeated exposure to a word in order for it to stick.
So when you understand how you learn and then how you learn to read, we've got this very heavy look at the code of our language and cracking the code. But what are the high engaging experiences that you need to have to really learn content? What's the best way to engage the kids, to give them a reason to read? When you understand how we learn and you understand the theory of embodied cognition, the idea that we take information in through our senses and our brain represents it visually, we represent it auditorily, we represent it kinesthetically. So the more senses that are recruited at the time of learning and the more that we can bring meaning to that experience and emotion to that experience, the better chance that your brain will remember it and then bring it back out and represent that learning in diverse and multifaceted ways. That's the work of arts, to really help the kids engage deeply and connect to what they're being asked to learn, and then produce work that demonstrates their learning.
So relative to our 90% goal, I'm always on the lookout for what's going to take to transform that experience between the parent and the child, or the teacher and the child. And one of the things that I didn't fully understand was the power of art and literacy. Debbie Arsenault is an art consultant that the Learning Alliance used early on in our programming. And we saw that she was making magic happen in classrooms.
Miss Debbie is going to be helping us today, and we're going to be acting out some stories. Are you ready?
The prince used her shoe and searched the whole kingdom to find Cinderella.
Every classroom is full of creativity and learning, whether that is the arts classroom bringing in stories and literacy, or the main classroom bringing in arts and storytelling.
Very nice.
Do we want them to learn it today and forget it tomorrow? Or do we want them to learn it today so that tomorrow they can add to it?
So we'll give you that moment to gather your thoughts and jot down any insights, ahas, or questions. And you can share those in the Q&A. We'll keep an eye and try and incorporate responses as we go.
All right, Debbie, I think that question is a nice lead.
And
What are some of the things that you have done in the classroom? What have we learned? And
perfectly queued up. All right, so I figured I would share some really concrete examples of sort of what does it take to do this work and what does that look like in practice. So if you want to scoot to the next one, one of the biggest things, and Liz touched on it in the video, right, then when we talk about approaching literacy learning through a science of reading approach, right, we're talking about language comprehension and word recognition. And a critical part of language comprehension is background knowledge. How to, building the content knowledge and then applying that in meaningful ways, right? So here's just a couple of snapshots. In second grade, there's a pretty intense unit. Our students are learning about the War of 1812 and the Star-Spangled Banner. So we do a self-portrait exercise where they put themselves into the flag as we talk about symbols and American symbols and what that means and how that relates to the history of that moment. Yes, second grade. We're actually getting ready to do that right now. In first grade, they learn about the Nile. So we use a watercolor technique. So as they're working and water is seeping and the colors are merging, we're talking about how the water is seeping into the dry land around the river, and that is fertile land where crops grow, right? So they're writing and learning about content while also learning through an arts technique and building up across grade levels. We have a recurring immersive installation where we bring content around space from kindergarten, first, second, third, all grade levels. And then every single student on their way to their special areas or their art classes get to see that content coming back at them. So it goes both ways, right? From the arts into the content and from the content into the art. And if you want to move
what happens when we take those installations down, Debbie?
Oh, those children were very upset. In fact, some of the teachers had tears as well, because they just really, one of the underlying hypotheses there is that when students see their work on display and that work, they've worked hard on it and they are proud of that work, they are motivated to continue to do good work. So we talk about the criteria of wall-worthy work. What does it take to get it up on the wall? And the beauty of the creative process is that it is a process, just like learning is a process, right? We don't show up on the first day of school expecting them to know everything. We don't show up on the first day of a rehearsal expecting the show to be done, right? So my background is primarily in theater, and you see that represented here as well. But we really think about that process, the messy creative process of learning, alongside the high quality product or the outcome that you see manifesting in these data metrics, right? So we invite the families to come be a part of this work. We have a one showcase per semester with kindergarten, first and second grade knowledge units. And we invite the families to come in, and there's a performative element. There's an interactive question and answering element where students really get to show what they know. And so this isn't a quiz, but it is an assessment, right? We can tell that the kids are learning because we have structured this engagement in a really intentional way. And I'll speak to something that often comes up when looking at this work in detail. All of this is what you're seeing so far is inside of the required core content curriculum. So it is all about not adding new information or new curriculum resources. It's about using the existing curriculum that our teachers are required to teach, and then looking for opportunities to bring arts and creativity in so that the learning can come to life. Because again, this is how they get excited and how they hold on to this knowledge. So we have our human body knowledge family showcase in first grade, where they got to display all of their knowledge about the different human body systems. In the spring, they do a staged fairy tale ball. And in that case, we even bring in our community partners, the Ballet Vero Beach here in Indian River County, and that we've designed a fully integrated program where the students also get to go see a professional ballet. So it's all connected to their core content and curriculum. And if you want, I've got one more kind of selection. Yeah, just this idea that when we are showing up every day as teachers, we want to bring that joy. We want to create that joyful engagement for our students. We can't, that in my mind, it is a fallacy that learning is fun or it is learning. Learning is fun and can be fun. These are not mutually exclusive ideas. So if we're really thoughtful, and Liz talked about, one of the structures we have in place is our collaborative planning time as a team, also the coaches that we have in place. So I work really closely with, as the arts integration person, I work really closely with each of the grade level literacy coaches so that I can make sure that what we are presenting and doing with our teachers is responsive to their needs and responsive to the needs of the students in really intentional, standards aligned ways. So you'll see here, we had a unit on farming and we were working on key details and sentence structure in kindergarten. A pig can do something, a pig has something, right? And then we start building in adjectives. So story elements, sentence writing, right? All of this really detail-oriented work in alignment with the standards can be brought to life using visual art, because when our kinder friends, and you saw this in the video, they were working on, I'm working on this one now, when our kinder friends can't write full sentences yet, but they can draw, we can use that as a tool to get inside of their thinking and make their thinking visible. So just to kind of wrap up this little piece, in our next slide, what does it take to actually do this? Right? Coaching and curriculum implementation. So I've spent time getting to know our curriculum and getting to know our teachers and getting to know where the areas and needs are. And that is a cycle. That is one of those continuous improvement cycles. We pre-plan, we plan, we follow that into implementation and execution. I work with our special areas, our music, our art, our PE, and our media. What does that look like in their spaces? Those showcases of learning where we make it go beyond the four walls of the classroom. And we are absolutely privileged and gifted in this community, and as in so many communities, with amazing arts organizations locally. So I serve as a bridge to connect those organizations into the school setting so that I don't have to do everything. I am one human. It might seem like I am superhuman sometimes. It really is about leveraging relationships and understanding that everyone has something to bring to the table, and that's the integration, right? We take the arts, we take the literacy, we take the learning, and we live in an interdisciplinary world. So why wouldn't we learn in an interdisciplinary way, right? So I think that brings me
That's great, Debbie.
to the conclusion of my little part.
And I would say that, we always talk about learning is a connection project, and to really think about, and you displayed this beautifully, how we help the kids connect to the learning, how they connect to each other, and how we as adult learners need to be connected, and the different structures and systems in place to ensure that we are connected to each other, we're connected to our youngest learners, and to your point that the learning is connected and interconnected, and finding those places to leverage those connections is key.
Well, and just one last thought on this idea of systems and sustainability, right? We've been talking a lot about, we've been on this path for a number of years in the public-private partnership, but in the school, now we're at the point where we're having conversations about how do we share this, right? Conversations like this one, the module in the series, how do we share this work so that it becomes the way we do what we do. Brian sort of started by saying the way of work at the district, right? What is the way of work inside the school, right? What is it that we are doing that just becomes a part of us? And so modeling and then gradually releasing and then creating system, making it visible in this way, and creating places and spaces that we can share the work, that is now sort of what's next for us, right? Like we're really trying to continually iterate, but we don't have to start over all of the time. And that's why I'm so excited y'all are here having this conversation with us. Nope, I lost you, Liz.
No, I think that's great. I think there's a poll up.
Sorry, I was
That's kind of
muted.
the.
Thanks,
ahead.
Debbie and Liz. I think we're, moving on to the last section here, which is really if there's any Q&A that haven't been addressed. But obviously funding. I mean, this is a big issue. Every community has their own funding sources, but when you talk to people out there, the reason people don't want to invest in education or public education is because they don't see impact, right? And they think like our institutions are struggling right now. And I think that, step one is to create the belief that we can and that there is a way of work. And that's why we think this is so important. And we think the summit's so important. We are trying to get clear on what great looks like and where are people on the journey, and where are you now, what comes next, and what are we all aiming for along the various systems, right? So our hope and dream for the summit is really to create a louder understanding about what the systems levers are, what great looks like, and allowing individual participants to know where they are, where their journey is on each one of these levers, and create their own plans of action towards great, because every community has different assets and different needs. But we also collectively want to radiate out that, it is the American dream is all about unlocking every child, no matter what home they come from, to, do better than their parent. We all believe, I think, in this chat room that there's no more important thing than education. You'll see in the videos principals saying, as a public school, we weren't doing best by kids, but there is a way. And there is a way of work. And together, I think we can, rebuild confidence and investments in our schools. And in Florida, for those of you who aren't from Florida, we are, highly competitive. Public schools are no longer a monopoly. Parents have vouchers. They can take it anywhere they want. So, we are trying to be the model for all the schools that are opening up, because this work is not easy. And we've invested a lot of time, both at the community and school level, to give people a leg up. So it doesn't take 15 years to get where we are, that we can bring people up to where we are and learn from other people who, may be ahead of us on certain of these levers, so that we're all doing what's best by kids and unlocking the future of all children. So did you want to say something, Marie?
So we've got on the screen too, there's a QR code there if you'd like to see that trailer, share the trailer. And again, we'll also send a link out to some of to that. And we'd like to invite everyone to attend the summit. As Barbara said, the summit's a great chance where you can get to reach this progress more rapidly. It took us 15 years, and we want to share all that and learn together and create action plans together. So we've got a QR code for the summit as well. And I think Jenny and Sarah, if there were some other questions, I know we try to address a few during the conversations, but if you have any others that stood out, I think we have a few minutes to go over those too.
And we will do a tour of the Moonshot School and one of our leading pre-K centers, childcare resources. So there will be field trips.
We should probably add to February in Vero Beach is a beautiful time to come here. So we invite you all to come down and see the work in person and us work together.
Thank you for the invite. It sounds amazing. And yeah, you all did a great job of answering the questions as we were going through the conversation, but we do have a few that maybe we can go back to and touch on. And if someone has a burning question they haven't put yet in the chat or Q&A, feel free to do that as well. There are a couple still related to the work at the school, Dr. McMahon, and so I don't know if there's anything else you would want to talk about in terms of who took on the operational tasks at the school level. I know you talked about trying to take that off the plates of the principals. Were there specific people that did that aside from sort of just district? And anything else about sort of systems that were established and incorporated as you were making this shift
anything else you wanted to add there?
Sure. The operational question, I think the answer would be pretty boring, and it really depends on the people there. It was really just, it was prioritizing the work of the principal doing instructional leader. So I don't know if it was really an intentional, we will be taking this off your plate, we will be taking that off your plate. But it was mainly an evaluation of what are we asking principals to do. One example of that is there's a lot of systems that need to know what a leadership team is for that particular school year at the beginning of the year. And I would ask for some data perspectives so that I knew how to give or who to give whole school access to, for example. Other district leaders needed it for other reasons. So we were asking principals 12 different ways to tell us who's on your leadership team. And so they were having to answer it 12 times. And that's just one example of a lot of things we were asking principals to do. So we developed a system to where district leaders could ask principals to do something, but it was through an online newsletter that went out once a week. And district leaders are not allowed to email principals. We communicate through that, what we call the collaborator. And in that collaborator, if there's an action item we needed principals to do, we couldn't give them less than 2 weeks to do it. And so it really created a system to allow them to focus purely on instruction. So that was
I remember Lindsay Matheny, who was the first principal of the Moonshot School, saying when they told me to do that, there was no way I could stop being a building manager. And I think that's really a great question for principals themselves. One of the other ones says, unless there's a fire, I do not come outside of the classroom, right? So I think some of these things melt away. And when you're telling parents, your priority is instructional excellence and there should be, I got a feeling some of the complaining goes away. And at Datacom, I know, Brian, if I'm a principal at Datacom and say my air conditioning system wasn't working, the operations people are immediately addressed. I mean, they become accountable to making sure that schools are running efficiently and effectively. So it would be a really interesting deep dive, but they have all made the transition. And once you change priorities, somehow the rest of it, if you're holding people accountable, seems to go away in ways that were astonishing to the principals themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear. Really helpful. Thank you. So we have about a minute left, and I just want to see if one or two of you had one just big picture thought about, you've been doing this now for 15 or more years. For communities that are not as far along, is there one thing that sticks out as a lesson learned that you would sort of put out there for communities that are more on the end of getting started with some of this work?
I think you need big goals, and I think you need to get a school district and a community holding and agreeing to that goal. I think that's what was the catalyst. That's what attracted Dr. Moore here. I think if you look at the systems levers, you will define your own custom plan to start where you need to start, because you can't do everything at once. I really don't want people to be overwhelmed. And I think that's the intention of the conference, is helping people accelerate. Where do you want to start and accelerate their learning path so that it doesn't take 15 years?
Yeah, I would say the goal, the power of the goal, because the focus becomes the goal. And then how do you reinvent yourself to reach that goal and come together, in community and in relationship, and eat a lot of humble pie.
Yeah, we talk all the time about how breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. And I think that's just one of the biggest. The goal is what keeps us steady and all of that, but it's also iterative, right? That we have this firm commitment to this vision, but what does that look like now? And what does that look like tomorrow versus what did it look like yesterday? Like, it's constant communication, conversation, collaboration, all of those things. And so for me, as bringing that creative mindset, it's yes, and it's not no, but, right? That we're building this together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think you could do a better job of sort of living what you just said. It's been wonderful to hear all of you talk about this work and the way that you've grown and changed, and how you are, getting so close to reaching these almost hard to believe goals that you've set for yourself. So thank you all for being joining for presenting today. Thanks to all of you who joined us. And again, we'll be sending out more information. If you missed a chance to get information about the summit or more information, we will be sending out all of that information in our follow-up email. Again, we just want to remind you of upcoming webinars. We had one this afternoon focused on book abundance, and then the next 3 following Tuesday afternoons, one on screens in the first 5 years, one on the evolution of homeschooling, and one on early relational health and building foundations for child, family, and school well-being. So we hope to see you again and that you'll join us for one of these webinars. And thanks again to Liz, Barbara, Marie, Brian, and Debbie for being with us and sharing. And we look forward to more in the future. So hope everyone has a great afternoon, and we'll see you again soon.
Everyone, thanks.